Good morning, everyone. And thank you to the choir. That is one of my favorite choir songs, so very nice that you did that today. So this month, we've been talking about community, common unity, this shared ideas, shared identity. We've talked about culture, about how we act upon these common ideas. We've been building it up to what do we do with that, and that is that it's time to create this metaphysical Christian community. That we've kind of been here doing our work, doing very good work and making big impact, but never really being seen. Cindy described it as that when they see us, they know us. You know, during the 60s, when you saw a hippie, you knew it was a hippie. And even today, if you see someone dressed like that, either they're a hippie or they're going to a costume party. So we know them when we see them. And part of what Cindy and Patrick showed us this month was that part of how we build that is in paying attention to our thoughts and our words, that we keep our emotions flowing, that we be good stewards of our energy field, and that as we're being these good stewards of our energy field, Patrick showed us last week that the linchpin to all of that is love, Christ love. So we're building this metaphysical Christian community, but in reality, we're part of lots of communities. So here, we're in the community of Georgia, Fulton County, the United States. We have other communities that share our interest. So, like I've got a lot of Scottish heritage, so I do a lot with the Scottish Highland Games. I grew up in stock car racing, so I am in a community of stock car racing. We even have these communities online. So like on Facebook, you can be a part of a group. InterQuest has a Facebook group for our members. And I'm a member of a bunch of those. One that's like mid-century advertising. We look at advertisings for the 40s, 50s, 60s, see how things have changed. Of course, I am part of several stock car racing groups. I'm part of a pun group. And when I go to Facebook every morning, that's the first thing I look at. So today's pun for you was this, that the Lego store has finally reopened. People are lined up for blocks. With everything going on, that's a good way to start your day, is with a pun. But the big question becomes, when you start to do all of this work on yourself, when you get to this idea of knowing yourself so well, how do I be me in these communities? How do I be me over here? How do I be me over there? I think when we're younger, we're one thing over here, we're one thing over here, something totally different here. But when you've had a little bit more experience in life with a few more birthdays, you realize that doesn't work so well. It fractures you. You're not pulled together. You get this idea of like, I'm not messing with this anymore. I'm going to be me here, me here, me here. So this idea of how do I express myself in all of these communities, it takes some thinking about. Because think about it. If you've got a community of people who are devotees to Coca-Cola, you don't go running in there with a Pepsi, okay? Or let's say that there's a community of a workplace. It's really hard when you are the new kid on the block in the workplace and you come in with a new idea to see everybody go. So again, how do I be me in these communities? And even though we're talking about a metaphysical Christian community, I've heard Cindy use this term a number of times. We ain't walking through walls and we're not walking on water yet. So we still deal with the humanness of being human and a metaphysical Christian. So with all of that, how do we be ourselves in community? And I thought, well, it's got to be in the teachings of Jesus somewhere. Did he not show us everything? Is there anything that we go through now that he didn't have a teaching on? Circumstances may be different, but the underlying energy and the solution is the same. So, are you ready to understand a little bit more about how to be you in not only all these other communities, but in your metaphysical Christian community as well?
Yes, please.
Okay. First thing. Jesus actually sought his community. I think we all searched for metaphysical Christianity. The moment that I picked up The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn, something that my mother gave me that she got for $0.25 at a yard sale, finally somebody was speaking what I had been thinking all along. In that moment, I had my community. And now it put me on a path. I started searching for it. So, do we fall into community? Yes. But it also requires this diligent effort to find it as well. Because here's the thing. You're not the only one thinking that. There are others who haven't known how to put something into perspective. They haven't known the words to say, but your hearts are the same. So Jesus searched for it. The Aquarian Gospel tells us that he studied the teachings of the Buddha, that he went to Athens, that he went to China, that he went to all of these places. He went to India. Here was the critical thing. He went to those places and he was in community with them. He never disrespected their community. He may have talked to them about their teachings. He may have expressed his heart in where he felt that their teachings was not enough, but he never disrespected them. So we find ourselves in these communities where, I got a disagreement with how somebody is doing something. Ego kicks in, and that's one of the worst times it can kick in. So he taught us, your ego doesn't kick in, you kick out. You leave. And when he left, he didn't leave like this. He left with these blessings, with this namaste. Thank you for what I got to experience with you. And then he went. So you will find yourself in community that worked, and now it's time to find another community. And could that even be in metaphysical Christianity? Yes. Particularly if you were moving to another part of the world or something. But when he left those communities, he came home. A lot of reasons why he came home. But the first thing, the big thing I think, is that community makes you feel at home. You feel safe. You feel like you can walk around with your ragged red robe and your crappy bedroom shoes. You feel safe. And so he came home to this place that was so much core of who he was. So community helps you feel that way, and you help others feel this way. He didn't go back home to deliver a message pointing a finger like that. He went back home to share his heart with the people who meant the most to him. And that's what we end up doing with community, is sharing our heart with the people who mean the most to us. So when you view community, our metaphysical Christian community, as home, it changes your perspective. Makes you feel safer, gives you an easier way to interact. But even once he got home, he looked for like-minded people. He didn't criticize, he questioned. He would explain why he felt that their rules and their laws kept us more isolated from God versus that one-on-one connection. But he sought out his people. And when he found them, what did he say? Follow me. When we're in our best place, when we're in that best place of community, we become an example. We become something that people, even if it's not our place, that even if it's not our thing, there's still something in it that we see. All right, so those of you who've known me for a while, you know I like my stock car racing. Don't like NASCAR quite so much because NASCAR, you have ruined stock car racing. But you know how genuine it is with me. You know I'm not faking that one. So you don't have to like stock car racing. But can you see that what you do like probably should have the same authenticity? That's how we help each other in community. That's how we say, follow me. But there was one thing that Jesus was very, very clear about. He said, follow me. He didn't say, copy me. He didn't say, wear your hair my way. He didn't say, even go do what I'm about to go do. He just said, follow me. He didn't ask them to be Jesus. He asked them to find their Christ so that the Christ could express in that community the way that was best for them and their path. But even at that, even with this large community, ultimately he boiled it down to 3 people. Peter, James, and John. Before his death, he gathered them into the Garden of Gethsemane. And actually, it's a beautiful story. The night was dark. I'm in the Aquarian Gospel, chapter 163, starting in 28. The night was dark, but in the orchard it was doubly dark, and Jesus bade the 8 disciples tarry by the brook, while he, with Peter, James, and John, went to Gethsemane to pray. They sat beneath an olive tree, and Jesus opened up the mysteries of life to Peter, James, and John. He said, the Spirit of eternity is one, unmanifest. And this is God the Father, God the Mother, God the Son in one. In life of manifest, the one became the 3, and God the Father is the God of might, and God the Mother is omnipotent God, and God the Son is love. And God the Father is the power of heaven and earth, and God the Mother is the holy breath, the thought of heaven and earth. And God the Son, the only Son, is Christ, and Christ is love. I came as man to manifest this love to men. As man, I have been subject unto all the trials and temptations of the human race, but I have overcome the flesh with all its passions and its appetites. What I have done, all men can do. And I am now about to demonstrate the power of man to conquer death, for every man is God made flesh. I will lay down my life, and I will take it up again, that you may know the mysteries of life, of death, and the resurrection of the death. I lay me down in flesh, but I will rise in spirit, form with power to manifest myself so mortal eyes can see. So in a trinity of days I will show forth the all of life, the all of death, the meaning of the resurrection of the death. And what I do, all men can do. And you, my three, who constitute the inner circle of the Church of Christ, will show to men the attributes of all the gods. That's heavy for us to even hear right now, isn't it? How do you think the disciples felt? Why do you think that there was only 3 of them who could handle it? He wasn't saying to the other 3, you're not good enough. He was saying that the frequencies and the vibrations didn't match. So in our community, you will find those that your frequency and your vibration is tighter and closer with, and others who are not. And as long as we see that in love, as long as we know that in love, there's no distraction. There's no space. We're still close. We still have love. It's just that our interactions with others will be different, and that's okay. That is natural. The other thing, though, that Jesus did to show us community, I have a little thing on my refrigerator at home. It's a worm, and it's got a head on both sides, and it says, wherever I go, there I am. So wherever you go, there you are. You bring the totality of yourself to every community that you're in. So what do we do with that? We understand ourselves. In the beginning of the Aquarian Gospel, Eliyahu says, you know, when you finish with all your studies, you're going to come to me and ask, well, what do I study now? And I'm going to tell you, go back and study yourself. It's an endless book. You will not be finished with it. But this was the 40 days and 40 nights. This was the time that Jesus went to be by himself, even without the 3. I personally, since all of this lockdown stuff has started, that's where I've been. So if you've called me, sent me an email or a voicemail, and I haven't called you back, that's why. I've been in this place so tight, just doing what I've had to do. And in that, I have come to understand myself in a greater way than I ever have. And it has given me a tremendous amount of peace. It's given me courage and understanding. I think it did the same for Jesus. Why wouldn't it have? But I think the thing that it ended up showing him the most is that the greatest community is not the community of metaphysical Christians. It's your community with God. Earthly communities come and go. The community with God does not. The community with God is the one that is uncompromised. It's pure, it's authentic, and it's genuine. When humans get caught up in things that sometimes they don't display those characteristics. So the goal, the ultimate goal, is not to get attached to a particular community. That doesn't mean don't protect it, don't strive for it, don't increase it. But it isn't the end game. The end game is that community between you and God. Those two energies are a community in its own that can change the world. But what it enables us to do is to better operate in these other communities. What it does basically is that it says, I don't have a need to go into the Coca-Cola group with a Pepsi and trash them. I don't need that. But what it also means is that if someone does, I don't need to trash them. It's what Patrick talked about last week. Love is the linchpin. What is God? God is love. When you are in that community with God/love, that's what you project. It makes us better in our communities, and this is the thing that builds the strong community. As we move forward into building this metaphysical Christian community, and thank you, yes, because we've been too separate from the world, and it is time, as we are now moving into this age of Aquarius. Aquarius is the energy of the micro being able to know where it goes in the macro. Perfect fit. We will find our place. Our place will find us. And as we're doing that, as we're holding to this ideal, we'll continue to build our own inner community the way in which Jesus taught us. We'll align with the like-minded people. We'll find those that are closest to us so that we can have that greater communion. And we'll bring it home. We'll bring it home. So are you ready to bring home some metaphysical Christianity in your heart right now? Put your feet on the floor. Let's do a quick meditation. So whether you're sitting here in this building or you are somewhere else, or you are listening to this at another time, I call forth God love to just surround you and wherever you dwell right at the moment. A soft God love that penetrates in the easiest and gentlest of ways. And I ask that you open your heart to allow that God love to come in through that door. And as that God love comes in, I want you to see the communities that you are a part of, the ones that you're conscious of, and maybe the ones that you aren't, and to see them spread out in front of you. I'm going to ask you to take a moment and just send your love to all those communities, to all of the people, to all of the things that go on in that community, sending the purest of God love. And I want you to see that those communities are kind of like on a mountain, kind of in a valley. And then I want you to see the community of metaphysical Christianity. See that community as the light on the hill. And it has a door. And if this is your community, I'm going to ask you now to walk to the door and open and go in. That you bring into this community all that you are, all the love of our Father, Mother, God, that you can hold and walk into that community. Father, Mother, God, it is our goal, it is our desire, it is our heart to be a greater, stronger, shining light on the hill. A shining light that shows your God love. A shining light that beacons to those who have forgotten your love, who seek your love, who seek to understand it greater. And we all bring into this community the totality of who we are. That which has worked and that which hasn't worked quite so well. And Father, Mother God, I ask that this community be lifted. That all that we need, that we know is there in our community. And that we can be who we are in our community. So I'm going to ask you now to just begin to bring yourself back to the chair in which you sit, the room in which you are in. And Father, Mother God, we thank you. We thank you for community and all the communities that we are in, for the joy of human experience and the joy of God love through the human experience. And we thank you, God, and we love you. And so it is. You can now easily and gently open your eyes. Today, in the traditional Christian churches, they are celebrating Pentecost. So Pentecost was a ceremony that was 50 days after Easter. It was a ceremony to celebrate the coming in of the first harvest. But it's also when the church received Holy Spirit, holy breath. So how appropriate that we end this series of building community and our desire to build a metaphysical community on Pentecost, which is why we're a little bit of red today, because in a lot of churches the altars are adorned with red, or you'll see maybe flags or other things that have a lot of red in them. When Pentecost happened for the disciples, everybody was in town for the ceremonies. They had just replaced Judas's position as the 12th disciple with, who was it? Matthias, thank you. I knew it began with an M. And the people could hear holy breath. You could hear it. You could feel it. There was no denying it. And people became a community. And one asked Peter, "How may we enter in that we may share the boundless grace of Christ?" And Peter said, "Reform and be baptized, and turn away from sin and lead the life deep hid with Christ in God, and you shall enter in and be redeemed." 3,000 people turned away from sin and were baptized and sought to lead the life deep hid with Christ in God. And then the last verse of the Aquarian Gospel. And in one day the Christine Church became a mighty power, and Christ became a mighty word that thrilled the multitudes in many lands. Letting it be so, and so it is.